Welcome to the Protecting the Village show, brought to you by the Protecting the Village campaign funded by Allegheny Franciscan Ministries. I'm your host, Anthony Maynard, and today I have with me Gwen Mcleod, who is the CEO and founder of We Leap, as well as Jesse Streeter, who is an experienced law enforcement person who has a number of years behind him in that, as well as a domestic violence advocate. Welcome both of you to the show. Gwen, why don't we start with you, and you can just give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you've gotten to us here at this point.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and share a little bit more about domestic violence awareness with the village. I am the CEO and founder of We Leap Incorporated, which is a domestic violence awareness organization. Our organization is 6 years young, but we're making a mighty impact within our community. I like to say we're a small piece of leather, but we're well put together. And our whole focus is on, and our mission is, number one, to break the cycle of violence, and number two, to break the silence of violence. So that's a little bit about our organization. I can go into a little further later.
Okay, excellent. Now, Jesse, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and your experience and in terms of domestic violence advocacy?
Yes, I have about approximately 35 years of law enforcement. Started out with being in corrections, and then I ended up being a detective over Invest. It's a experience in domestic violence and happenings in relationships.
Well, I'm glad to have you both on today. This is going to be the second segment that we're having on this particular topic, and you two both lend a little bit of a different perspective. I want to talk about We Leap and some of the programming that you have available there, Gwen. I know that it is a domestic violence awareness organization. And if you can talk about, for example, I know you have a women's support group. If you can talk about that, if you've been impacted by COVID and the pandemic at all, if you can share a little bit on that.
Okay, sure. So We Leap was founded initially starting out with just primarily doing support groups for women. And one of the things that I found out when we first started the organization is women needed an outlet to be able to talk about relationships. We would start out in the group talking about one thing, and some kind of way it will always end up with us talking about relationships. And having been a domestic violence survivor myself, it just was brought to my attention how it would be great if we made our primary focus on promoting healthy relationships and educating women about relationships. And so that's how we really started grounding our organization to focusing more on healthy relationships. Now, we usually meet the second Saturday of every month, but due to COVID, this year has kind of just made everything topsy-turvy. We started out trying to do a couple of Zoom meetings initially, but there were a lot of people who were just had issues with getting on and learning a new platform. But as we move forward, Anthony, we're already putting into plans on how we can do some hybrid support group meetings, which we'll do very, very small groups, of course, to be health conscious, to keep from spreading COVID. We're going to do some small women's support groups, but we are going to cater to that population that are ready to actually engage in Zoom.
Okay. Excellent. I know that you also have, it really interested me because I think it's a little bit different in terms of programming perspective out there. I know that you have men's services. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, sure, absolutely. One of the things, I'm married, just to put that out there. I've been married to a wonderful man for 23 years. He's been my support, my cheerleader, my all in all with moving forward in the capacity of growing this organization. And we could not speak to our women without giving a platform and an outlet for our men. So the name of our men's component is He Matters, because he does matter. We have 6 children, three adult females and three adult sons, but we took the time to raise and teach and educate both our sons and daughters on what healthy relationships looks like. It's not just enough for a man to know, don't put your hand on a woman, don't be abusive, but we also need to teach our sons on how not to be victims in these relationships as well, because domestic abuse swings both ways. It does not discriminate, race, color, sex, it doesn't discriminate. So we thought it was important to give men an outlet and give them a platform to be able to have that discussion about relationships as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, on the topic of men's services and the male perspective, Jesse, I want to bring you into the conversation at this point because I wanted you to talk a little bit about that male perspective and what you have seen out there from the law enforcement standpoint. Can you share a little bit about any experiences or background you have with that?
Yes, my background goes with males and females, and the males, their percentage of male victims has grown almost 5 times as much as women over the last 3 days. But you wouldn't know that because males are too proud to tell, and they're holding it in. But yes, and with my experience, women suspects, if you will, is more violent than the men. They when they had enough or starts to abuse the male, they use knives, guns. Just don't smack people around like the male suspects does. The women, they use deadly weapons.
Wow. I guess that's a good point, and something that you wouldn't necessarily think about. But that you do see pop up in the news, when a woman has been pushed too far and has had enough of that type of situation. Jesse, to piggyback on that a little bit further. Now, I know we had talked about it with Evangelist sermons off camera in terms of males who were in groups. We have social groups, we have friend groups, and so forth. And one of the things that can be an issue is that if a male is either an abuser or suffering from domestic violence, a lot of times the males around them have no idea, or they're unaware. Can you speak to whether you've seen that and whether that's a true phenomenon or not?
Yes, dealing with males, like I say, is very difficult because it's hard to pry out of them what happened to them. And then from there, they will lie and cover it up. And it's hard to get it out of them what happened to them. And so dealing with a lot of males, you have to know what you're doing and see the signs and work on that. And you have to build them up before they'll talk. It took me at least 8 months for this male to talk. And when I did, his wife shot him. After he told, she shot him. And then ran to Tampa. And we caught her and brought her back. But yes, it's very difficult, as you said.
Yeah, and you're taught in there, you mentioned males and what they're taught. I want to go back to you, Gwen, on that subject because in teaching, these are some of this thinking, and some of these issues are framed when both men and women are young. I know that teen dating violence is a topic. It's been a subject in our area here recently. I know programs like the End It program have an entire play that is dedicated towards the topic of teen violence. Gwen, can you talk a little bit about that and your experience with that?
Absolutely. Raising awareness for teens is near and dear to my heart because not only am I a survivor of adult domestic violence, but I'm also a survivor of teen dating violence. I've worked closely with End It as well, and had opportunity to share with their program my testimony as a teen and surviving domestic violence as a teen. 1 in 5 teens are actually affected by domestic violence, and a lot of times their parents aren't even aware that they're engaged in toxic relationships because it's so hidden, it's so covert. And one of the things that I wanted to do is to be able to educate our young people on how to become advocates amongst their peer group. Because a lot of times, kids will listen to other kids before they listen to you. So I want the young people that I'm working with to know what they're talking about, to know how to, get the information to their friends, to know and be able to identify what the signs of abuse are. And that's important to me. Like I said, I was 17 years old when I experienced my first encounter with domestic violence. I actually had a gun pulled on me, looking down a barrel of a gun in the name of love at 17 years old. And my mom had no clue. I could have died at school that day because it happened on the school campus. That was before doors locked and all of that kind of stuff. So I take the opportunity to educate our teens very seriously, because you can fall in love fast and fatally.
Okay, well said, Gwen. On teen dating violence, I'm going to swing back to you here, Jesse, before we close out. Just to touch bases a little bit, you shared with us the adult perspective and the severity that can lead to. Now, on the teen side, when we're dealing with younger people, do you have any experience that you can share in relation to that?
Yes, I had a case where high school here, this boy, he jumped to psycho within a week. She broke up with him. He and his mother was a teacher. She broke up with him. He came to her house at 3:00 in the morning, hid in a pond, came out the pond, broke into the house, put a knife, stabbed the daughter, almost hit her in the heart, but he stabbed the daughter, he kidnapped the mother by knife point, and we had to talk him down. But yes, I've seen a lot of those go on.
Wow,
it's crazy.
Jesse, now you this is something you've seen a lot, as in this isn't a rare occurrence. I mean, that story, that's almost something off of TV. Hidden in a pond, it doesn't even seem like that type of thing would go on, because you don't hear that much about domestic violence situations that work out in that way.
Yes, it does, and like I say, he hid in a pond for hours. We had dogs, we had helicopters, and he escaped us. And by habit, we caught him walking down the sidewalk hours later, and we was able to bring him in, and we got a confession, and he told us everything that he did and why he did it, and he just said he snapped, and that's what he did. He snapped, and he couldn't take her leaving him and being with another man.
Wow, I thank you for that, Jesse. It really sheds a light on just how far people in general can go in relation to domestic violence. I want to thank both you and Gwen for participating in Lincoln Park TV and joining us on the Protecting the Village show. We will definitely put out, again, as much information as possible in relation to the things you've talked about and any associated organizations. And we want to give as much support and as much of a voice as possible to those out there who are dealing with domestic violence. Thank you for watching Lincoln Park TV. We want to, again, stress for everybody, underlying all of this that we're talking about in terms of domestic violence in segment 1 and this segment, we are in a pandemic. We've touched a number of times on the percentage of cases that have gone up because abusers are at home or in work from home scenarios and so forth. So we just want, again, to underscore, as we always have through the Protecting the Village campaign, that COVID is a reality. We want to keep it as safe as possible, and we want to be mindful of the impact that it's having, even in scenarios like this where you may not see it. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.